Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will call the October 3rd meeting of the Common Council to order. I will ask our clerk to call the roll to determine a quorum.
Alderperson May.
Here.
Probst.
Here.
Reinke.
Here.
Rote.
Here.
Vitale.
Here.
Weigel.
Here.
Barzak.
Here.
Chaplesky.
Here.
Haas.
Here.
Lysick.
He is excused.
9 present, 1
We
excused.
have a quorum. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will be led this evening by Alderman May. Okay, we have several items for public hearing this evening. I will ask our clerk to read item number 1.
A hearing on the special use permit for the Market at 6 Points Apartments, a proposed multifamily apartment building to be located within the Nona portion of the Market at 6 Points redevelopment at 6620 and 6700 West National Avenue.
Thank you. Mr. Stiebel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nona is a nomenclature that refers to north of National Avenue, and this is the 6 Points Farmers Market project. Over to my right here is the Farmers Market. National Avenue divides the two areas, and this is north of National Avenue, or referred to as Nona. To the south is going to be a food cluster referred to as south of National Avenue. The public hearing this evening is for the purpose of reviewing the special use for the apartment buildings. Because of the zoning district in this land mass, it requires a special use. In September, the city approved the Aurora Medical Complex on the northern part of Nona, and this evening we'll be taking a look at the 177 apartments, high-end apartments on the south end of the Nona complex. Because this is a C3 commercial district, multifamily requires a special use. The mix of bedrooms of the 177 are somewhat eclectic in that 18 studios, 71 one-bedrooms, 66 two-bedrooms, and 18 three-bedrooms. We haven't seen a lot of three-bedroom new units being built, so that's quite interesting. The two-bedroom units are more kind of referred to as roommate apartments, where both the bedroom and the bathrooms are the same, so they have equal access to the resident to fight as to who gets the better of the units. So it's a very interesting setup. It's a 3-story building of 2 buildings, 84 and 93 units, respectively. A $31 million development, and the total development is going to be somewhere around $64 million. 319 parking spaces will be required from this particular complex. 290 are provided. Technically, it's quite a lot more parking spaces than is typically provided in a new multifamily development. You see a lot of a 1.1 to 1. We're about 1.64 to 1, so it's a little bit more heavily parked, which we like. On the interior parking area is all underground parking. I'll get to that in a minute. But the transportation pattern is circular and provides a lot of guest parking and a lot of pedestrian pathways, even over to a dog park area for the facility. The first floor and all the other floors are kind of set up very similar. As for underground parking, this is the layout. They'll come in off of National Avenue. In both directions, they'll be able to enter and exit the building. Also around the edges there, because of the dramatic topographical changes in here, we're going to have some kind of a retaining wall, and we're still working with the developers which style and type to incorporate to ensure its most desirable impact. The building, you can't quite tell it from our system here. This is quite yellow. If you were to look at it in reality, we hope to fix that in the near future. But it's going to be composed of Nichiha, which is kind of a clamp-on material, cement boards in some of the areas, exposed finished rafters up in here, which are kind of unique and harken back to the industrial era, which this building and complex is trying to feed off from the West Allis's historical industrial heritage, the kinds of materials and the style of the structure. Most importantly, the windows are dramatically larger than we've seen in many of the newer multifamily developments around. As we do in the architectural style, the recreational area is composed of you can't quite tell it here, but a striking glass boxy area with second floor open area for outdoor recreational areas. The night vision is going to be quite interesting and also quite dramatic. And I think it's going to have a major impact on that corridor and most importantly in that image to the city of West Dallas. The materials, as I mentioned, are going to be brick, cement board lap siding, Nichiha, and cement flatboard panels. The elevations are going to be architectural shingles and cement board and brick throughout the entire complex. The Plan Commission has reviewed this special use and has recommended approval, and we've received no objections to date. If you have any additional questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Stiebel. Are there any questions or comments from the members of the Common Council?
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Weigel.
I just wanted to bring up a point that Director Stiebel didn't bring up, that so of the apartments, there's no income-based subsidy, there's no age-based subsidy. These are all what we call market rate apartments, and the interiors will be like stainless steel fixtures and granite countertops and that level of quality, correct?
It's, you're right, I was remiss in not mentioning it's an extremely high quality development. It'll be equivalent to every high quality development that's built in the city of Wauwatosa. We're going to be putting a lot of subsidy in this, in terms of public subsidy to create that kind of living environment. As an example, the apartments immediately to the east that have been built for a few years are renting, if you will, for like $1.10 a square foot. These will rent for about $1.53 a square foot. The subsidy is in Wauwatosa, they're renting for about $1.90 a square foot, so we're going to be subsidizing that differential. But they're going to be very high quality, and what we're trying to do with this development and with the Ogden development at 84th and Greenfield is to raise the bar of all multifamily living in West Dallas, and so that we'll be able to attract more of this types of development without these types of subsidies.
I wanted to thank you and your staff, as well as the Plan Commission and the Community Development Authority for all the work that's been put into this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Vitale?
yeah, I would like to say this project, I mean, the way I think the council and everybody else, the development department, they've really been putting a lot of effort to make things happen, So I feel the investment that we follow with this project, that's something that if it's nothing gets done for that site, we just have a bare land, which we have to mow the lawn, and we have to do a lot of work on it. So this is a future for our community, really. That's a hell of a good project, and we chose a good developer to pursue this project, really. I'm very happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the Common Council? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions on this item from the audience? Okay, seeing none, we will close public hearing number 1. I'll ask the clerk to read public hearing number 2.
A hearing on the special use permit for CISA Number 1, a proposed educational facility to be located at Parkway School, 2930 South Root River Parkway.
Mr. Stiebel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Parkway School on the 2900 block of Root River Parkway has been vacant for not quite a year, but has gone through a number of different uses. And the proposed reuse for this facility is for CISA, which is an alternative education service that provides educational support to the various districts in trying to help them do more difficult projects. And that's what this project will do. Because of its use, it's a special use, and that's the purpose of the public hearing. We're going to be having K through 12 students at this site. There'll be a limited number of students there. They're going to be coming from a variety of school districts, so I'll talk about that in just a moment. One of the bigger issues that we did was to work with the neighborhood and CISA and the school district to find a common ground and to find some kind of uses for this site and the compatible students for this site to make it something that it's conducive to a quiet, peaceful enjoyment of the neighborhood, and yet being able to provide enough resources to help these children, these young students be able to achieve and be successful. There'll be a cap on the number of students. Initially, it's going to be, I think it's about 70 or 80. I have to look up. I forgot which it was. Hours of operation are 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Parking is ample on that site. 25 spaces are required, 65 are provided. There are about 18 different school districts that are sending one or more students to this facility. And these are the types of programs that are offered at this site. One of the programs that was proposed to be there was for students who have been expelled or that were expellable, and we removed that offering from this school, and I think we've made great progress in working with the neighborhood to find something that's acceptable to the neighborhood, acceptable to the police department, and acceptable to CISA as well. I know the police department was very happy also to have that program eliminated for the expelled or expellable students. Transportation was another issue for the neighborhood. They didn't want to have the neighborhood impacted by huge volumes of vehicles running through there, and so required that all students be delivered by the school district. They're delivered to the door. Somebody from the school district comes out and welcomes them and escorts them into the building as well as back out. The transportation also has to come off of National Avenue, so we keep it out of the neighborhood. The students will all be coming through the school district transportation. There are some limited exceptions, such as if the school district, the parent, and CISA agree that some of the students only have a half a day of school and then they're done for the day. They may have a job, and if they have a job, they can be given a waiver so that they can drive themselves to and from the school. However, if there is some abuse of that, that can certainly be withdrawn, and that's another issue. And the best thing I think that CISA has proposed for the neighborhood is that contact with students coming from transportation in the building and out of the building. And I don't want to say they confiscate their cell phones, but the students must leave their cell phones and other communication with the school district, and they only get them back at the end of the day. If they should leave the building at any time during the day unescorted, then the CISA will actually go out there and follow them to try to get them back, and if they're unsuccessful, they will call the police department. So from historical uses 20 years ago, it's an entirely different type of educational opportunity being provided at this particular site. The landscaping is essentially in. There'll be minimal landscaping. In fact, most of the landscaping is just going to be recreating or refreshing what was there and what is deteriorated. The special use also required during the initial process that a number of neighborhood meetings be held. And I think this was very instrumental in trying to get CISA and the neighborhood comfortable with what was going to be going on in that facility. And that's what happened. There'll also be some continuing meetings with the neighborhood as the school year progresses more intermittently than what was previously done. And I also want to point out that this is a special use, and if the special use is violated, the special use can be revoked, not just in the next 6 months, but tomorrow or in 9 months or at any time. If it's not in compliance with the special use, it can be revoked, and that's our biggest tool to make sure that everyone does what they say they're going to do. If you have any additional questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Stiebel. Are there any questions from the members of the Common Council?
Mayor Devine,
Alderman May?
just a quick note. A person came in about a month ago, and they had told us that we should deny this because we need to send a message to the school board that they can't subvert our city ordinances and can't forget about us. And I just want to make the statement that I don't believe the school district has received any special treatment on this. And in no way am I going to punish the school board. We're another governmental body. We have a mutual interest in seeing the city succeed. I'm going to judge this on the merits of being able to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our community. And I just wanted to make that known. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Just
other-
one comment on that. It's hard sometimes for anybody to follow all the rules of any entity, particularly the operations that the school board does, and then the operations that the city does. We don't always see the other one's objectives, and so you'll have something like this happen every once in a while. And I think the school board's been very responsive in trying to get it on the track and to understand why we need what we needed and fully comply with what we requested.
Thank you, Mr. Stiebel. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Vitale?
I've been talking a little too much tonight.
Yeah, who put a quarter in you?
But anyway, in all fairness, the fact it is, today lives, the way it is in many families, they do experience many problems with kids. You know, kids, they need help, so they need a place where somebody, teachers, someone could be out there and work with them. So to me, this is a good program. The location was a school before. There was more traffic years back, you know, when, and today I don't think will be the problem for the neighborhood, really. I don't think those kids, they will cause any disturbance for the area, you know, really. So I'm totally in favor, really, once it comes to vote on. You know, I have no problem with that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Mayor Devine,
Alderperson Reinke?
thank you. First of all, John, we have the wrong title on the slide.
Oh,
But any,
thank you.
excuse me. All right. I would be remiss if I didn't indicate that I received several phone calls on this regarding Parkway School, obviously, for the CISA program. I have to say that most of the concerns were excuse me. All of a sudden, I'm getting hoarse. Most of the concerns were regarding trust and transparency, traffic, and safety of the neighborhood itself. CISA 1 was granted a temporary permit for September with very stringent conditions for the well-being of the residential neighborhood this last month. And they have adhered to these conditions and have been a good neighbor. They hosted 5 neighborhood meetings in September explaining their program. We had an open house on September 28th to view the classrooms, if you wanted to see the classrooms and visit with the teachers. The students attending this program are from many surrounding communities. As John has indicated, there are 18 communities that are involved in this project. Only two students are from West Allis, and 57 are from other communities. These communities can't service their educational needs, and so West Allis wants to help these communities by opening CISA at Parkway. Now that's a lot of taxis, that's a lot of buses that come through our neighborhood. But as John has alluded to, we do have restrictions in this permit that they only can exit and ingress, I think that's the word, from National Avenue. Parkway School has had many uses in the past, and I have to be upfront and say some of them weren't so good, but some of them were very good. We were very pleased when they had the recreation department at the school. It caused no problems whatever. If approved, I would hope that the neighborhood would remain the quiet, safe neighborhood a place that the residents really have come to enjoy and expect to enjoy. I have a special preference for this particular neighborhood because I live there. So I'm especially interested in what happens to Parkway School at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments or questions from the Common Council? Seeing none, are there any questions or comments from the members of the audience? Please give us your name and address for our record and sign in either before or after your remarks.
Okay, I'm Gail Radomski. I live at 7822 West Manitoba Street, West Dallas. Initially, when the special use permit was proposed, I contacted many of the, or all of the board members and expressed my concern about it, but in having attended some of the meetings that they had for the community and for the neighborhood, those concerns were put pretty much at rest. I think that that they're addressing some of the concerns we had. They took the expulsion piece off, student piece off the table, which was one of my great concerns. Mr. Stiebel, you said that that this would be for K through 12, and it was my understanding in attending those meetings that it was through 10th grade. And unless I'm mistaken, and maybe then somebody can clear that up, but I thought it was K through 10. And just when you make your decision as far as whether to grant this permit, I hope that there is a limitation for the amount of students that will be housed in that facility at this time, with a possible potential of maybe raising that number in the future, seeing how things go over the next year. And that I don't know if is the permit just for year to year, or is it for the?
Runs with the land.
I'm sorry?
The special use permit runs with the land,
What does that mean?
perpetual. As long as they are there until they vacate it for 1 year, it's active.
Okay,
Now, it can be
Right.
revoked upon violation.
it can, okay. All right, well, that's pretty much all I had to say then. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the audience have comments or questions on this item? Comments are good.
Hi, my name is Dorian Templin. I live at 2820 South 114th Street. I've been there 20 years in May, and I'm right across the street from Rosalie. And so I'm very familiar with Parkway. I went there as a child when I was in grade school. When this first came upon us, like Gail talked about, I was very, very much not in favor of this. I was one of the people that came to the meeting, the first meeting, where there were many, many of us that were quite disgruntled. But over the weeks that we've had meetings and talked and seen what's going on there, and then last week we had an open house where they had the teachers were there, and you could come and see the rooms and see kind of what's going on. There were no students, of course, but I think it's going to be a great big plus for our district, for our school district, and for our city to have it opened up as a CISA thing. It's a good thing, and sometimes these kids need to be put in that type of environment on more of a one-to-one basis and have more special attention so that they can get back to their regular school and do what they're supposed to do and lead a productive life. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience have comments or questions?
Pat Kern, 8711 West Arthur Place. Rosalie summed it up very, very nicely in all the things that have transpired to put CISA in motion and hopefully grant a permit to CISA. CISA is a cooperative education service agency, and I think maybe that's part of why this is a mystery. What is it, and why would we want to grant a permit to CISA? CISA was developed by the state of Wisconsin. There are 12 of them. Under state statute, they operate in conjunction with the public schools, 430, and we are all divided up and each have our regions where CISA is the backup service to us when school districts, especially small ones, cannot afford the services because of full-time staff needs and expenses, so we use CISA. CISA is a composite of administrators and teachers who do the same services that we do in our schools, only they can do it with a staff that now has the funding, and the school districts buy slots in order to utilize their services. In the case of what we're looking at today, this is all for special education students. And that's a very big ticket expense for school districts to bear if you're too small and you can't have full-time students, full-time teachers to service those students. In this case, for us in West Dallas, we've had our own school. We have our own staff. The majority of the students are serviced over at Irving and at the Learning Center on 70th Street, which we are now relocating to the Lincoln School over on 78th and Lapham. So we are at a point where we can service all of our students but 2 that are going to go to this facility. The other 18 school districts in the area that CISA services here in southeastern Wisconsin, there are 45 of us, they need the services. This will be rotational from 6 months to 18 months. And then the children, if their needs are met, will be able to move themselves back into the normal K-12 environment. So they're not juveniles. They're not expelled students. The great majority of these students are K-8. And I hope that as you look at this program and the benefits that these children will derive from this program, it won't be something that you're looking at so punitively to revoke the permit. This is a staff of seasoned professionals. Unfortunately, the last placement they got for this group of students was on the county grounds. Would you really want elementary and middle school students there? This is a chance for these students to survive and grow and hopefully be productive citizens of society. I've worked with the CISA board on my time on the school board for 6 years. On the Board of Control, there's 12 of us that represent our 45 school districts, and it's probably one of the more pleasurable things I have done besides being in the schools with the kids is to work with the CISA board. They are outstanding, they are our good partners, they are great staff developers, and I truly hope that you will approve this permit and give them a chance to show you how good a partner they can be.
Thank you. Does anybody else have comments or questions on this public hearing item?
Good evening. Marty Lexman, 3770 North 52nd Street in Milwaukee. I serve as the superintendent of schools of the West Dallas West Milwaukee School District, and I know I'm not supposed to speak to the previous item, but the fact that there's 3-bedroom units is encouraging when you're the school district because it supports families, right? So it's enrollment for us. So support that one. But in terms of the CISA special use permit that were requested, what I wanted to speak to is a little bit of just background motivation and a little bit of process that honestly we got wrong. Right, and I think it's important for me to express that publicly. In terms of motivation, I think the board here is very well aware of the financial challenges the district has been facing. And we have turned every rock, turned every possible scenario, even pursuing a referendum that wasn't successful, and we have to respect the community's wishes with that. But it also means that we're using other strategies, which includes selling buildings, leasing buildings that are vacant, because I think it's our responsibility to access the revenue we need to make sure that we return to fiscal health. We're making great progress. And I think when our audit this year comes out, I think this community will have reason to be really proud of the work that's been done to put us back in a solid footing in just 2 years. But this is one of the strategies, is to lease the building. Now, in my mind, and I've learned a lot of hard lessons coming through this in the process, and John's been a really good partner in helping me learn. In my mind, it's a school building, right? We're using it as a school. We had 1 class of kids in there, so it's a school building in a school district, and CISA wants to lease it and use it as a school. Why would there be any problem with that, right? That seems reasonable to me. I've learned differently, right? So I've learned that we have to be better partners with the city, and I think the conversations that we've rushed into in the last 6 weeks that feel like we've been less than transparent are things that probably should have started in January when we had initial discussions with CISA. But that's the only thing I can do is take the lessons that my father has taught me. When you make a mistake, you have to own it, and you learn from it, and you move forward. And I just wanted to share that with the board and the public here. That's really kind of how we landed in this. But in the end, it's good for the district financially, and it's an opportunity as a broader community to serve kids well. And even though my primary advocacy for children is this school district, I'm an advocate as an educator for all kids, and this is an opportunity for us to serve kids well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members? Oh, I see people popping up.
Good evening. I'm Mary Gavigan, the Executive Director of CISA One. I want to thank you for your consideration of allowing us to be able to serve children from southeastern Wisconsin at Parkway School. We provide, as Pat mentioned, we provide more than 100 services to 45 school districts in CISA One. As a CISA, we receive no taxing authority, no state aid. We exist through state statute. We are a cooperative designed to support public school districts here in the southeastern part of the state. 4 of the services are learning programs that right now are at Parkway School. The children, their parents, and the member school districts who have children there are absolutely delighted to be at Parkway. For the last 3 years, these particular learning programs have been recognized for their successes, academic and behavioral successes. Children are only there for the purpose of achieving success to be able to then transition back to their home school district. And we are currently, with these 4 programs, serving kindergarten through 12th grade children in a variety of ways. We're a unique niche. We have a very, very small teacher-student ratio, much, much different than what any of our public schools can provide. And we are that in-between place when some young people need a second chance, and when our staff, their parents, and a member school district feels it's the right fit for a child for a particular period of time to bring them to success. So thank you very much for your consideration tonight.
Thank you for your comments.
Mayor Devine, if I could just interject. I just had a constituent reach out to me via text that we're having technical difficulties with airing the show, and we have apparently no picture and sound on the cable channel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol Spurka of 2825 South 114th Street. I just have one additional question regarding the special use. In the letter that we received from the neighborhood and that we're all outlining the stringent conditions for the temporary use, is that like a contract that then it is put in the special use, so those 8 conditions would have to continue to be followed by the CISA district?
I couldn't quite hear the question.
The restrictions that you put on CISA for the temporary permit, are those put in like a contract with them so that they have to follow them in the future? Like, is it written down?
Yes, they are. They're in the special use.
Okay, so all of the ones that, these are the same that you defined in the
Yes,
letter?
and it's online and everyone can read it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on public hearing number 2? Okay, seeing none, we will close public hearing number 2, and I will ask the clerk to read public hearing number 3.
A hearing on the special use permit for Aldi to add alcohol beverage sales via a Class A liquor license at 1712 South 108th Street.
Mr. Stiebel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Aldi's in the Culver's Shopping Center, if you will, is proposing to allow liquor sales, and the purpose of this public hearing is to review that request. One of the conditions of approval would be the additional landscaping, Highway 100 being on the left here. There's some additional landscaping that was never installed in that grassy area, and that'll be part of the conditions should this be approved. The Plan Commission has reviewed this recommendation and has recommended approval. We've received one objection to date from Walsh Liquor, indicated that this license could allow to more alcohol sales would be a problem to the area. And in discussion that concept with the police chief, it's not the liquor sales that cause the problem, it's where people are drinking the liquor that causes problems. So that shouldn't be a major issue to be considered. If you have additional questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Stiebel. Are there any questions from the council on this item?
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Barzak?
John, in the special use, are you aware of any written percentage of floor space that this would come in? Here's my concern, is that Aldi's gets the liquor license, And they have, and I've seen the liquor sections in Aldi's and other locations, and it's not substantial. It's actually pretty small. But the reason that I believe it should be listed in the special use on some type of percent or some type of actual square footage is one day, let's just say Aldi's leaves the community and that liquor license is at that location, and someone else comes in and puts in discount liquors, and it becomes a full-blown liquor store. And that's what I want not to happen. In the past, some of the licenses, we didn't have restrictions into them, and they have become full-blown liquor stores. So in this particular case, in the special use, I would like to have some type of listing of square footage and/or percent of floor space either way. And I don't care if they inflate it a little bit to make sure they have a little bit of room to grow. But it's the concern that should it flip someday, that it doesn't become, that it has to stay its same type of use as a grocery slash store that is selling liquor products.
It is not in there. What you brought up is a very good idea, and we will put it in there at recess, and we'll talk to you about what number to put in there. Obviously, Aldi's is very small. I think we're going to have another one coming up in a little bit here that I think is going to be like 29%. Aldi's would probably be 5%. But I see your point, and we will make that happen before it comes back to the full council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the members of the audience?
I had no idea that, oh, sorry, do I have to say my name and phone number, name and address again?
Yes, please.
No? Yes?
Yeah,
Yes. Dorian Templin, 2820 South 114th, West Allis, Wisconsin. My comment is, every time we turn around, there's somebody else carrying liquor. How many stores do we have to have? Even Target has it now. Everywhere you go, they have liquor, 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 liquor. Do we really need liquor in another building on 108th Street? There's a place on 113th Street. There's on Greenfield, which is what you said, Walsh. And there's a place on, at Target, they have it. And right down the street at the other Aldi's, right in Greenfield, in the city of Greenfield on Highway 100. How many places do we need to have alcohol? It's ridiculous. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on public hearing number 3?
Robert Merkel, representing Aldi Foods, 9342 South 13th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. What I can tell you in response to or a question regarding the square footage is approximately, right now, we run about 32 linear feet of alcohol sales, just wine and beer, which amounts to about 100 square feet of alcohol sales. The alcohol sales in our stores are less than 5% of our overall sales. Most of our alcohol, especially our wines, are more cooking wines. It's low cost alcohol sales. It's more of a complement to our other products that we offer to our stores. So it's not like we're focusing on alcohol sales as part of it. It's just an overall offering that we allow our customers in the stores.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions on public hearing number 3? Seeing none, we will close public hearing number 3, and I will ask the clerk to read public hearing number 4.
A hearing on the special use permit for a proposed daycare facility to be located at 7234 West Beecher Street.
Mr. Siebel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On 72nd and Beecher is a proposal for a currently vacant building to become a daycare center. Right across the school from Jefferson School. This is the location on 73rd and Beecher. They're proposing to have a daycare center for about 10 children. One of the issues that we have is the high volume of traffic in the area because of Roosevelt School. And one of the problems is the drop-off of how to deal with that. And I know the engineering department has recommended denial based on the inability for drop-off, not wanting to use 73rd Street because that's already congested with Jefferson School. One of the issues also is the median that's been placed in the street there, and I'll get to that in a minute, which has eliminated parking or pulling over to unload children. Because this is a C2 zoned area and it's a daycare center, it requires a special use, and that's the purpose of the public hearing tonight. The hours of operation are proposed to be 6 a.m. to 11, 7 days a week. They'd have 2 to 3 staff people. Parking, because this is a historically traffic impacted area, 4 parking spaces will be required, but they only have 2 parking spaces in the rear of this rather long lot. Site landscaping are going to be fairly minimal. They're just going to be along the Beecher Street side of the property. The entity is also asking for a loading zone on the western part of the property, so that there'll be an open area during the prime unloading and loading of children. The floor plan, the building is an old historic building in the sense that the front part was a commercial and the back part was residential. Depending on the proposed uses, they would convert a number of these residential uses into the classrooms for the children. Also, the residential area, because of the building, depending on the age of the children, they may need to have a direct access to the street if they have very small toddlers. In that sense, that they would propose to take out this window and put it indoor. That's still being debated, depending on where they locate the children, should this special use be approved. The Plan Commission has recommended denial of the special use because of the ingress-egress, but they have approved the landscaping plan. One of the biggest problems is the median that was put in by the school district to accommodate their ingress and egress. And so it's kind of interesting in that we're recommending denial of a special use of a commercial property, primarily because of some of the things that other users in the area are doing that are exacerbating that problem. And as a result, the Department of Development is recommending approval of the special use. If you have any additional questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Stiebel. Are there any comments or questions from the council?
Mayor Devine.
Alderperson Probst.
John, can you show me on that drawing where exactly the kids are going to be dropped off? Are they going to be on 73rd Street or?
It would be right here on 73rd Street.
Okay.
Or sorry, 2nd Street, I mean.
As someone who has spent considerable time at Jefferson Elementary School in the morning before school acting as a crossing guard, I can't even imagine adding more traffic to that specific corner already. It is, I have stood there and watched the near misses on the accidents, and that median strip was put in by the city, not by the school district, on our recommendation from our city engineers as a way to try to help kids cross at that spot when we were looking to put in traffic control signals. That was cost prohibitive, so the median was something that we could do to try to slow traffic down in that particular spot right in front of Jefferson. I can't imagine adding more traffic, even for 10 kids to be dropped off there. That's just unbelievably dangerous, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council?
Mayor Devine?
Alderman Wyden.
John, was this going to be a lease, a tenant, or is it going to be a purchase? And would it be a for-profit or non-profit? I'm just curious if it's going to stay on the tax rolls with this new use, if it's approved.
It'll be a for-profit. The operator has purchased the building and is now trying to figure out how to make this daycare work. And we had initially indicated to them that daycare centers in this area may be problematic, but they went forward with it. But it'll be a for-profit, privately operated daycare.
So the purchaser is already in the daycare business, has other locations, or bought it kind of on spec and thinking, oh, I couldn't do anything else with it, I'll make it a daycare?
That I'm not sure of.
Okay.
I'll know before we get to committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council?
Mayor Devine.
Alderman May.
First, I want to thank Alderperson Probst for clarifying that on that median. That was definitely a recommendation that came from our engineering department to make this safer for the school. I guess one of the things, as you know, I'm a traffic engineer by trade, And one of the things that often comes up on various projects across southeast Wisconsin is when a site user wants to come in, traffic is often used as a reason to deny. And one of the questions that comes up is, if not a daycare, what else could go there by permitted use? And how does that traffic compare? And it's something that can actually be measured. So I'd be curious to see, before taking action on it tonight, I guess it's up to the older people of the district whether they want to do that. I'd be curious to have the engineering department determine how much traffic a daycare generates compared to other uses that could go there. In the end, whatever use is going to go there is going to generate traffic of some kind. How does the daycare, not only how does the daycare traffic compare, but also, you know, daycare is in the morning and in the afternoon, which can compete with the school district. Are there other uses that can go there that would not compete? I'd like to see that from engineering. One more question. Parking on street, you said there is no on-street parking left there anymore?
2 parking spaces
On street, and how many behind?
on their property.
And how many behind? On their property?
On
How many
their
on
property.
street? On-street parking.
Oh, we haven't counted it'll be the typical on-street parking of 72nd Street.
But nothing on Beecher?
Nothing on Beecher.
Okay, thank you. And again, I'd like to get that clarification of if not a daycare center, what else could go in there and how does that traffic compare? Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council?
Mayor Devine.
Alderperson Ranky?
John, could you please reaffirm the allotted space in the play area? How much area is there for play area for the children?
This is the building, this is the play area, and this is the parking. So you can see it's a significant amount of, probably the size of the building, more than state law requires.
I see.
Now, here's another picture of it. Here's the parking lot, here's the play area, and there's the building. So here's the play area, 900 square feet, and about 1,100 square feet is the building.
Was there any other objection that the commission had other than the drop-off?
It was the drop-off was the only one that I recall
Was
hearing.
prime? Okay, no other concerns?
The plan commission approved the site landscaping, but based on
Right.
engineering's recommendation, they recommended denial.
I see, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the common council?
Mayor Devine, I apologize. I do have one more question. What was the number of kids that could be serviced here?
10. The other option was for them to have a home daycare, and if one of the service providers work it, then they would have 8 without a special use.
And they would occupy the entire building, you said?
Correct.
So the residential in the back would go away. All right, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Is there anybody in the audience with comments or questions on this item? Once again, we ask for your name and address for our record.
My name, excuse me, my name is Doug Gallus. I'm at 214 North 76th Street, Milwaukee. I'm currently providing architectural services for this proposed development. The owner of the parcel, Sharish, is here. I don't believe he has a specific statement, but he would answer questions if required. The tenant that is proposing to run the daycare center was not able to be here this evening. However, she did submit to us a written statement that I'd like to read with your permission.
Go ahead.
Okay, it says, Dear Board Committee of the City of West Dallas, as a current owner of a daycare, I understand the possibility of danger, but my goal is to practice safety at all times while being within the reach of the children or out of the reach of the children at all times. I will be honored in helping out the West Dallas community with providing the best care for all children of all ages. I will provide a welcoming and safe environment for all children. We will provide transportation for the children if needed. Hot meals will be served along with nutritional snacks. We plan to do field trips and have lots of outdoor play and more. At this location, given the fact that it is a very busy intersection and a residential street, we will be sure to take all and extra precautions at making sure that our babies are supervised at all times, meaning whenever there is a child present, there will be accompanied by an adult. At no time will a child be left alone or around our center. We will not be using the busy intersection for dropping off children or picking up. We will use the rear entrance at all times when unloading children accompanied by an adult and walking them through our gated community into the building safely. All parents and staff will be informed on only using the residential street when parking. At no point will we use the intersection to release a child to their parents or any authorized persons. At no time will the front door be used to drop off or pick up any children. The rear door will be used at all times. The only reason the front door should be used in case of an emergency for evacuation purposes only. At all times, we will strive to be the best community child care center and follow all rules and regulations. Best regards, Mrs. Tia J. Burks. One of my comments in reviewing this and listening to the discussion at the Plan Commission is, and from the owner and from the tenant, is that they will have extremely limited parking or vehicles on site at any given time. Again, possibly a worker could park on the street and walk some distance without any child being involved, and they could use the parking lot off of the alley as a drop-off point. And there's a sidewalk that leads along, a public sidewalk as well as a private sidewalk that leads along the south edge of the property to the rear door. And I believe that that is the intent of the tenant to utilize this. The door, as was proposed for infants along 73rd Street, that we might be adding is only to comply with code requirements for an additional exit directly to the street in case of an emergency for the toddlers. So I don't know if you have any questions regarding the architectural aspect. I can answer it. Sharish possibly could answer any questions as the building owner.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Good. Okay, I didn't see any. Anybody else in the audience wish to address the council on this item?
My name is Suresh Gopalakrishnan. I am the owner of the building. The biggest concern from the planning committee was the drop-off pickup area. So the Beecher Street won't allow, there is no parking allowed on Beecher Street. So we would like to change that pickup loading zone to the parking lot behind the building. There is 2 spaces for the parking lot. And my tenant has a vehicle for kids who need transportation. And for the parents, if that parking space is not available behind the building, they can use, I hope they can use the residential street on 73rd, 74th, or 75th, if there is space there. And my second point I want to make is this is a small daycare center. 10 kids is the maximum limit, but I foresee it will be less than 10 kids there. So the amount of traffic we are going to create there will be minimal, I think, especially with the parking space we have available behind the building. So I have a couple of other daycare centers I own, that is in Milwaukee City, One is at Capitol and Fond du Lac, and the other one is on Holton Street. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience have comments or questions on public hearing number 4? Seeing none, seeing none, we will close public hearing number 4, and I will ask the clerk to read public hearing number 5.
A hearing on the special use permit for 3-in-1 Thrift Store, a proposed secondhand article retail store to be located at 3125 South 108th Street.
Mr. Stiebel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Highway 100 by Ace Hardware, and that area is a building that used to be a games facility. It's been vacant for some time, and now a thrift store wants to begin operating in there. The zoning is C4, and thrift stores require special use, so that's the purpose of this public hearing. Hours of operation will be 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. 18 parking spaces are required. 26 parking spaces are currently provided on site. There's a number of issues that need to be dealt with on this site because of its deteriorating state, and will be required as part of the any approval of a special use, including landscaping is noted here, and ingress and egress cleaning up the site. As you can see, that it's deteriorated asphalt, new lighting will be required. They're also going to be putting some landscaping along here and replacing these curb stops so that they would be anchored into the ground. And the same is on the north side of the site as well, and to paint the building. We also encourage them, and the owners have proposed to reorientate their ingress and egress so that they'll enter off the alley and then go northbound behind the building and come around. Entrances will be off the front of the building. The Plan Commission has reviewed this, is recommending approval, and we've received no objections to date. If you have any additional questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Stiebel. Are there any comments or questions from the members of the council?
Yeah, Mayor Devine?
Alderman Haas?
Yeah, Mr. Stiebel, you may know or may not know, 3-in-1, okay, that refers to the Trinity, right? Is there not some thrift, you get 3 for 1, is that where that?
It is a religious thrift store.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the council?
Am I going to add? Mayor Devine? Mayor Devine?
Alderman Weigel?
So is this going to be taxable or not? Is this going to be off the property tax rolls? It's being bought by a church? Being
I
owned
will
by a private landlord who rents it to them?
I will check on it before the conclusion of the special use of the Safety Development Committee. But if it's going to be rented, it'll be taxable. If it's going to be owned, it would be tax exempt.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council on this item? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the members of the audience? Sorry, back up audience.
I
Alderperson
apologize.
Probst.
John, is this the group that we received some email about a while ago from Martin Luther? Is this that group that always put together their big rummage sale and they were looking for an outlet? Is this part of
I'm
that
not
group?
sure. I'll look into that. I believe it's a Lutheran related facility.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from the council?
So many.
Okay, are there any members of the audience with comments or questions on this item? Okay, seeing none, we are going to close public hearing number 5. We are going to move to item 6. Madam Clerk, please read public hearing number 6.
A hearing on an ordinance to amend sections 12.06, 12.40, 12.41, and 12.42 of the revised municipal code relative to defining and permitting medical clinics and massage therapy uses.
Mr. Stiebel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The police department has been experiencing incidents of sex trafficking in some of the massage parlors in and around the city. We have very limited tools to use to eliminate that facility from the city, and that's the purpose of this public hearing, is to take massage therapy out of the medical clinic and make it a separate entity by itself, so that if the police department should in the future discover such a facility being operated for that purpose, we can remove the special use and thereby shut down the facility. And that's the purpose of this ordinance amendment. If you have additional questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Stiebel. Are there any questions or comments from the Common Council on this item?
Mayor Devine?
Alderman Weigel.
I guess my question for John is, I see essentially all the commercial zoning districts listed up there. Is there a reason we need to include all of them, or could we make it even more restrictive so that it would essentially be not permitted in certain parts of the city? I'm thinking particularly of the C1.
We are looking at this in terms of the context of zoning, in terms of the small business. You want them in a C2, a neighborhood area. All those that are operated appropriately can and should be in those smaller zoning districts. Those that are operating illicitly need to be removed immediately. Now, we certainly could, but I'm not sure it would be the greatest utilization of the zoning tool to do that, but it is possible.
Okay. I guess was this going to be acted on this? I guess I'd requested this be held until I get some feedback from the other businesses, well, actually from our downtown association, aside from the Business Improvement District, which is the C1. I guess I'd like to hear from them and see what their thoughts are. But you raise a good point. If someone's running a legitimate business, we should let them open up. But I guess as a representative of that district, I'd like to hear from the other members of that, particularly the C1, before we move forward with this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the members of the council? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the members of the audience? Okay, seeing none, we will close public hearing number 6, and I will ask our clerk to read our final public hearing number 7.
A hearing on an ordinance to amend section 12.06, 12.41, 12.42 of the revised municipal code relative to defining and permitting commercial printing services.
Mr. Stiebel.
Mr. Mayor, this is a change in our zoning code. Right now, printing is typically a manufacturing operation such as Quad Graphics, and it's zoned appropriately. To help the small business community, those that do the print your stationery or your more retail-oriented establishments, we want to recreate another zoning definition of printing commercial so that we can allow the smaller printing operations to be within our smaller zoning districts. For example, in C2, where we promote small business to be in there, part of the code already limits them to be no larger than 5,000 square feet, and also requires them to have 10% of retail space. So we don't have a manufacturing operation in a C2, your neighborhood commercial zoning district, but yet we can allow for the small businessmen to operate in those areas. And that's the purpose of this zoning proposal. The Plan Commission has reviewed this recommendation, has recommended approval, and we've received no objections to date, and if you have additional questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the members of the council? Alderman Weigel.
This ordinance was brought forward after my discussion with staff, and I think John touched on it a little bit. You think about an operation like Quad Graphics or H&M Graphics in the second district, and then you compare that to something like a Kinko's, and we had them lumped into the same place, or Ellington, DC Ellington, or Graphic Impressions. We had them essentially in the same zoning district, and I'm glad we were able to find a solution here. And by not making it a special use, we're also not then imposing the special use price tag on it of $500 for a special hearing and all that. So it's a permitted use. Again, the limitations that we've put on the 5,000 square foot maximum and a requirement of I believe it's a minimum 10% retail area. I think this would be a good step forward to help promote small businesses in most of the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the members of the audience? Okay, seeing none, we will close our last public hearing. And we will move to item E on our agendas, which is citizen participation. This is the opportunity for residents to address the council on any matters of interest to them. We would again need your name and address for our record, and we ask that you sign in before or after your comments. We ask that you keep your comments to approximately 5 minutes as well. Does anybody wish to address the council under citizen participation this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will close citizen participation, and we will move to item F on your agendas. Our standing committees will be meeting during recess. Those room numbers are listed on page 2 of your agendas. Moving to item G, the mayor's report. I want to remind everybody that the Chamber of Commerce, in conjunction with the Shepherd Express, is hosting its first annual Porktoberfest on Thursday night at the Farmers Market. It is going to be restaurants from the West Allis area and beyond, offering sample sizes of pork-inspired dishes. I'm told there's even going to be a vegetarian restaurant there participating, which I'm eager to see how that's going to work out. There will be music, there will be drinks. Tickets are on sale through the Chamber website. Currently, they have a special going where if you buy one, you can get your second ticket at half off. This is a fundraiser for the Chamber. Tickets are $35, and when you check out, if you use the keyword pork, you can get half off your second ticket. The West Allis Police Department is going to be having its neighborhood partnership meeting coming up later in October on the 25th at 6 o'clock at Lane Intermediate School. These meetings have been valuable in addressing neighborhood concerns and crime trends in our community and the challenges that impact our quality of life. Again, that's going to be on the 25th of October at Lane Intermediate School at 6 o'clock. This Saturday, October 7th, is the fall community-wide cleanup. That is from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. at the police substation at 69th and National. There is a waiver you need to sign. They will provide bags, gloves, and pickers to pick up the garbage around the city, and lunch is provided at the end. And the last thing I have is tomorrow at the McDonald's on 110th and National, there is going to be from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. coffee with a cop. There will be representatives from the West Allis Department, the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Milwaukee Police Department. Free coffee. And from 4 till 7 p.m., there is going to be Cone with a Cop, and I believe that's free ice cream. And again, there will be the 3 law jurisdictions represented there. And that's again at the at the West Allis McDonald's on 110th and National tomorrow. That concludes the mayor's report. Do we have any reports from the alderpersons this evening?
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Weigel.
I just wanted to congratulate the Downtown West Allis Business Improvement District. Last Sunday was the 27th Annual Classic Car Show. We had absolutely a gorgeous day, unexpectedly warm, nice weather in October, as well as no Packer game that day. They had record attendance of registered cars. I believe the last number I saw was 555. It might have gone a little bit higher than that. As with any event, in its 27th year, again, they had a big day. There were a couple issues. I don't think I haven't heard anything major yet. I would encourage any of the neighbors in the downtown area, if they do have an issue about it, to reach out to either me or Alderperson Probst. I've spoken to 2 neighbors already about some issues that had come up, but we always look forward to hearing from our constituents, especially about things that need to be improved. But I think the bid did a great job. I didn't count how many volunteers. There had to be 50 volunteers there, and for an event that starts at really 5:30 in the morning, that in itself is miraculous to get that many people up and at it for a full day. But again, I think everybody had a great time. So thanks to the Downtown West Allis Business Improvement District, Diane and Emily Eineichner and Chet, and Alex and everybody. They did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Are there any other alderpersons reports?
Mayor Devine,
Alderperson Reinke.
to piggyback upon Alderman Weigel. This is the first time I ever attended the car show. It was awesome. If you've never gone, please consider it for next year. There were approximately 550 cars, all antiques. It was great, and the crowd was wonderful. So you can be proud, District 2, because it was really a nice affair for West Dallas. And there were people that were there from all different communities, so it definitely is a plus for West Dallas.
Thank you. Any other alderpersons' reports? Seeing none. Alderman Haas?
Mayor Devine, I move for approval of the minutes of our last regular meeting, September 19th.
Second.
There's a motion with a second by Alderman Vitale. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item J, we have one item that was not referred to committee. I'll ask for a motion to refer that to the city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman May, second by Alderman Barzak. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item K, standing committee reports, License and Health Committee, Alderman Chaplesky.
I will read those out after our recess committee meetings.
Thank you.
And Mayor Devine,
Alderman Haas.
I move that the council stand in recess until the conclusion of our committee meetings.
Second.
There's a motion with a second by Alderperson Ranky. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are in recess.